Quiz. The quiz is always review. I don't know if you've noticed. They're always old stuff, huh? They're just trying to keep you fresh. Not old stuff like old exams. I mean, stuff on the exam will take Monday, but the beginning of it. Right? So number 1 here. So this is x squared plus 2x plus 3 equals 0. This is quiz 12. Quiz 12. Okay, and it says solve. Oh, yeah. No, I want to review this with you. It says solve by completing the square. Yeah. No, I'm glad that I did do this one. Let me do this one with you really quick. Okay. I don't want to surprise you. I aim to not surprise you as always. On Monday, I'm going to hand you question number 1. It's going to be this exactly. I mean, different numbers, but solve by completing the square. Virtually the same as this. And it'll be just this question, not multiple choice. Because I'm actually requiring, the only time I have all semester and never will again, I'm actually requiring you to do a certain method, the completing the square method. So I want you to actually complete the square. What I mean is, you can't just use the quadratic formula on that. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus. I want to see that you can actually complete the square, that method. I'm not just trying to torture you. It's valuable. Remember when we graphed? We graphed the parabolas, we had to complete the square. Oh, did we do it that way? Oh, no, I showed you a different way. Yeah. Not in higher math. In higher math, you have to be able, you can't just use the quad on certain things. You have to be able to complete the square. So, in fact, just today, funny, just today I was teaching, what was I teaching? Trigonometry. I taught a lot of things today. I think it was in my trig class. I can't remember, trig or pre-calc. I was teaching them, and I said, oh, it's trig. Yeah, trig. You got to complete the square. You probably don't remember from algebra how to complete the square, but you got to. Come see me in office hours, and I just did it. And anyway, so higher math, just today in higher math, the trigonometry, I did that. It's required in higher math. So anyway, so I want to be clear. You have to do completing the square. Now, so that'll be the very first question on the exam I hand you Monday, and then you'll turn that in. And I'll give you the rest of the exam, which is all multiple choice. Do whatever method you want, So how do you complete the square? Do you remember it all? Completing the square, it's been a while. First, get the third number, move the third number over. So let's do this one and we'll stop. Move the third number over. So just grab this 3 and move it over. You don't want him in the way. X squared plus 2x. When that 3 moves over, he's negative 3, huh? So that's step 1 for completing the square. We had a whole section on this. Step 2, how do you find the completing number? Do you remember? Yeah, you take that middle number, it's the middle number, over 2 squared, and you add to both sides. Remember that? You take that middle number over 2 squared, which is just 1 squared, which is just positive 1, and you add that to both sides. Do you remember that maneuver? Remember how we learned to do that? You slow down there for a minute. This is what you've got to show me on that first question. You can check it when you're done by doing the negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a, the quadratic formula thing. That'll double check your answer. But I've got to see that you actually did this middle number over 2 squared thing. So we good so far? Does that make sense? Middle number over 2 squared. Add that to both sides. Why? Because that'll make this factor. Can you factor that right now? Like diamond, Can you factor x squared plus 2x plus 1? It's guaranteed to factor. That 1 is its completing number. It'll give it just what it needs. How do you remember what 2 numbers multiply to be 1, add to be 2? Yeah, it's going to be plus 1, isn't it? Those 1 times 1 multiplies to be 1, adds to be 2, huh? It always does that. It completes it. The other side, just add these up. What is that, negative 2? So this is x plus 1 squared. See how it made it into a square? That's what it'll always do. When you do that middle number over 2 squared thing, and you add it to both sides, it always makes the left side factor as a square. That's why it's called completing the square. You give it what it needs to complete it as a square. Does that make sense? Why are we so into doing that? Because now it's easy to solve. how do you solve for x now? How do I get rid of that? Well, now that I have the square, how do I get rid of the square? Root it. Put a root over the left side, over the right side, and plus or minus. So when you put a roof in the house, up and down the ladder. Do you remember all that? Rooting cancels square. Remember they're opposites? And so we just get x plus 1. The other side, we have plus or minus. Now, do you guys remember? What do we do with a negative inside of a root? Comes out as an I. Yeah, it comes out as an I root 2, right? Negatives inside a root come out as an I. Very good. We're one step away. What's my last step to get x alone? Just bump the 1 over. When it moves over, it becomes a negative 1, huh? Plus or minus I root 2. There we go. We solved it by completing the square. We gave it just what it needed to factor as a square, then we could root it and finish it up. Do you remember that? That'll be question number 1 on Monday. It'll be exactly that. You have to use this method. You can always double check. Here's what I mean by double check. Real quick, last seconds. Let me go back. Plus 3 equals 0. Here's how you could double check, or really even do it first, so you know what answer you're supposed to get. Most of you guys are probably very good at quadratic formula. You know what I mean? Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You'll have that in your 3x5 card for sure, right? We've been using that a lot in this section, right? A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. Let's plug everything in. Negative B, negative 2, plus or minus square root of B squared, 2 squared. Whoops. 2 squared minus 4. Whoop, I'm getting a little scribbly there. 2 squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. And what is that? That's going to be negative 2 plus or minus 4 minus 12 over 2. Negative 2 plus or minus square root of minus 8 over 2. This isn't actually all that easy. What's the square? And then that negative kicks out an I. So that's negative 2 plus or minus I root 8 over 2. Now what's the root of 8? Square root of 8? 2 root 2. Do you remember that? You know what I mean? Square root of 8, break it down, it's 4 times 2. 2, 2, 2, 3 2s, 2 2s, send one out. This is almost harder than just completing the square, huh? And then just divide, that 2 goes into that one, and that one leaves a 1 and a 1. So minus 1 plus or minus I root 2. Sure enough, there's the 2 answers. That's almost worse than just completing the square. But that's the other method. You can't do just that, though. That's what you'll do probably on most of the rest of the test, is use that quadratic formula. It'll do like a lot of things. But here you've got to show me completing the square. Is that good on that? Does he have 2 methods? All right. We'll